All right, hello. In this video, we're going to talk about the outdoor classroom setting, our students, and the teacher. So it's considerations when we are instructing and choosing locations to instruct from. Okay, instructor techniques and considerations. We'll start with the outdoor classroom setting. So our goal is to provide a positive, supportive, and safe learning environment appropriate for learning outcomes of the program. The instructor needs to understand and identify the challenges of working in an outdoor environment. Working outdoors is so much different than being inside in a classroom. We have weather, we have distractions, we have other people paddling, we have boating, we have marine life, we have all sorts of things that will distract our students and keep them from learning or from basically listening to us. So when we're picking locations and we are choosing where our inland portions are going to be and our water portions are going to be, there's definitely some considerations to keep in mind. So setting up the outdoor classroom, pick an appropriate and safe location that will provide a good learning environment. Select on water areas with appropriate water conditions for your particular goals. So an appropriate and safe location that could be on land, where we are away from hazards, outside of a parking lot where there might be cars driving around. Making sure that we're not in the way of heavy pedestrian or cycling traffic when we're doing our on land theory. Making sure that we are in a safe location where no one is going to get run into or trip or have other hazards get in the way. Selecting on-water areas with appropriate water conditions for your particular goals. That comes back to our Class 0 water classifications based on Paddle Canada, our requirements for a Paddle Canada basic skills course. So we have to consider what are the conditions on the water when we're looking at running the course. On water or water conditions also means maybe bacteria levels. Are they safe? So there are certain checks that we want to do as part of our preparedness that are going to let us know where today is a good place to run this class, considering all that's going on, including weather, traffic, and water quality. We want to avoid areas with distractions or manage distractions as best as possible. Managing is generally what it comes down to. Our students, especially in a basic lesson, sometimes they're excited, sometimes they're nervous. Attention spans vary. If it's all adults, their attention span might be a little bit longer. If it's youth, it's going to be pretty short. So someone riding by on a bike will suddenly be more interesting than whatever it is that you're saying. So we want to position our students so that there's as few distractions in their line of sight as possible. We can't get rid of all of them, but we can try to minimize as many as possible. Check for potential hazards and stay clear of them. This is also part of the preparedness that we're going to talk about. We're going to be looking at how to do a briefing as well. We have to be aware of the hazards in the area, and we have to notify the students of those hazards so that we can avoid them as best as possible. Confirm facilities and permits. Facilities could be a building that we're using. It could be where are the restrooms in this location because students are going to need them. Where are change rooms because people might need to change before and after a class. Do we have access to that sort of information? Permits. If we are in areas that is not private property, if it's managed by provincial municipal areas, chances are we might need to have a permit. So do we have the permit or are we working for somebody who else is holding a permit? So all considerations when we're looking at, where to run our class. Awareness of the environment. Environment could be weather again, it could be distractions. Environment could be so many things. Basically what we're looking for though is you must be aware of changing environmental conditions. So if we're going to be on the water for 3 hours, what is the weather going to do the entire time? Or what does the forecast say it might do all 3 hours so that we're aware of changes in wind direction, changes in speed, because that's going to dictate where do we go when we're on the water and are we staying within the requirements of what the water Class 0 water requirements that Paddle Canada wants us to be on. Make sure you and your students have appropriate equipment for environmental conditions. Again, we're going to talk about this in preparedness. If the water temperature is 20 degrees Celsius and the air temperature is 5 degrees Celsius, the water is going to be nicer to be in. As soon as we get out, we are going to be cold. We have to be in appropriate exposure gear. If the water temperature is 20 degrees Celsius and the air temperature is 30 degrees Celsius, appropriate exposure gear is probably going to be a bathing suit and maybe a rash guard to keep the sun off, because the sun is going to heat us up. Anything more and we might overheat. Understand the risks to students or wildlife if there are any. Risks are going to be related to hazards. Could be rocks, could be other traffic on the water, it could be each other. Wildlife could be wildlife that appears out of nowhere. The risk might be it's a distraction. It might be that the wildlife interacts with the equipment, depending on what the nature of what they do is. Are there jellyfish that are going to sting? All sorts of things that we might want to consider that are going to come down to our awareness or our knowledge of the area that we are teaching our lesson in. Where I teach, commonly seals are an issue. Some people are afraid of seals. So we need to manage that, ensure that they understand where the risk is or where the absence of risk is, to try and set them at ease. They also become a huge distraction. If you're talking and a seal pops up, you might as well just stop talking, because nobody's listening to you anymore. Enjoy the seal and then rally everyone back to what you're saying, and then continue on with your lesson. Um, Educate students on the natural features, wildlife, and sensitive habits. This is a perfect opportunity for us in this environment to be able to educate about, the outdoor natural spaces that we're using. From a wildlife point of view, it could be helping preserve the wildlife, preventing harassment. Natural features could be estuaries, the benefits to them, the wildlife that's in them, why we want to preserve them. Sensitive habitats could be marshy wetlands around the edges of the water that we're on, that we're also very interested in protecting and preserving. So there's an opportunity for you to educate on the area, and also potentially put in a little bit of an education to the um, environmental benefits to our natural surroundings and to us by helping preserve them. All right. So that's a bit of a summary of considerations in the outdoor environment, our outdoor classroom. As you do more and more of these lessons, it's going to become habit, but those are definitely things to consider. Now, when it comes to our students, other considerations to keep in mind. To fully support our students, we must understand their needs and expectations. Knowing some basic information will go a long way towards running a successful program and setting your students up for fun and success. Experience level, we need to know that up front. Expectations, what do they hope to get out of the experience? In a basic class, it's probably going to be, I'm hoping to stand. I'm hoping not to get wet, sometimes is what it is. So sometimes we have to coach around that one. Well, it's a water sport. Getting wet isn't a failure. Getting wet means that we're pushing our boundaries and we're doing some fun stuff. So the expectation is at some point you're going to. Our students' feelings, hesitations or apprehensions, challenged by choice. So very common, students are going to be nervous coming into this class. It's going to be a mix of nerves, mix of excitement, a mix of apprehension. So it's our job to help them manage that as best we can. We can do that through pace, through our actions, through our language, through a smile, through some laughter, and always setting that expectation that do this when you're ready, especially standing. I always demo standing a couple of times while they're watching, and then I encourage them to move at their own pace and not look to set their pace based on what everyone else is doing. And if they get halfway up and go back to the board, well, then we'll call that standing number one. And then we'll just gradually move into it, letting students know that they don't have to rush. will sometimes be enough to set them at ease. Attitude. What you put in dictates what you get out. That is both for the student and for you as the instructor. If you show up smiling and excited, your students are going to pick up on that. If your students are being withdrawn and hanging towards the back because they're nervous, they're not going to get as much out. As instructors, we might work to help them draw out, what it is that they're nervous about and help them manage it so that they end up at the end of the class with, a success or a win for themselves or that big smile because they've known they've done something new and hopefully they're excited to do it again. Clothing, appropriate gear for the conditions. It might be exposure gear depending on temperature. It might be a raincoat if it's raining to avoid evaporation and cooling. It might be a rash guard to help prevent sun. It might be a hat to prevent sun. It might be sunglasses with a retainer to prevent too much sun in the eyes. And it might also be, it's a little cool today. You can't wear that cotton shirt because it will make you cooler if you get wet. So let's put on some synthetic clothing. Medical forms. This is going to depend on the class that you're teaching. In a basic class, often this isn't going to be used unless there is a community that you're working with where maybe that's consideration. You might want to get them to fill out a medical assessment that you would keep private for yourself so what you might be working with. Other than that, for the most part, medical form aside, if folks are dealing with something, we can address that as instructors by saying, hey, if we're working with shoulders or shoulder issues or lower back issues, these are some considerations. If that's the case, you might want to let me know you're working with that. Just pull me to the side. So we can handle medical conditions or conditions that might be limiting or that we as instructors should be aware of, in a couple of different ways. A full-on form or, a discussion in private so that you know how to provide adjustments and tweaks for that individual. So again, so they have a greater level of success and fun on the water. Awareness of our students. We must be aware of the basic needs of our group. Cold, wet, tired, hungry, scared. If they are any of these things, they will not learn. Good rule of thumb is if you are cold and wet and tired and hungry, they are too. If they have gotten wet, it's best for you to keep checking in. How's your temperature? Are you getting cool? If you see them shivering, they're getting cold. If they're getting scared, you're going to see it in their faces. It's something that you as an instructor can work through with them. That's generally a little bit of a one-on-one to the side. We need to adjust our teaching style to suit the needs of our students. We're going to talk about that in in this next section here. But students, all of us learn in slightly different manners. Some of us learn visually, some of us learn by hearing, some of us learn by doing. We all learn basically by a combination of those. You're going to learn to pick up on how students are learning and be able to tweak your lessons on the fly. We need to foster a supportive and fun environment so students feel at ease. They trust that they are safe, have confidence in you, the instructor. When these conditions are met, they will have fun learning. So this is a big statement that is kind of hard to do. How do you make someone feel at ease? How do you make them trust they are safe? How do you inspire confidence in you as an instructor? Basically, it's going to come down to, in my opinion, body language, language, and how we're presenting ourselves. When we approach individuals with a level of compassion, they're going to pick up on it. When we see someone's looking a little nervous and we do a little bit of a check in to the side, they're going to know that we're seeing them and we're noticing them. That's going to help with safe. When we don't set ourselves up as huge, I'm the instructor and I'm perfect and you're just the student. When we don't set ourselves on pedestals, we're creating a safer environment usually for folks. Confidence can come by just working with them and having the answers to the questions they present, they bring forward, or providing options for them. to help them succeed. They will start having confidence in you as an instructor to be able to help them attain their goals. So this comes over time and with practice. And if you've done any instructing before, you probably know all this and do it already. But it's definitely something to consider. A student who feels safe is going to be a student who learns and a student who trusts. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. Understanding how people learn. This is what I was mentioning before, and perceive information will allow you to create lesson plans that cater to a variety of learning styles. In relation to the teaching of physical skills, students generally learn in these three ways. Visual, students need to see and watch the skill to learn it. They appreciate effective demonstrations and will be confused with talking. These students mimic your actions and will require good modeling. Mirroring will be a good technique for these students. Auditory students can learn a particular skill by listening to an effective description of the skill. Terminology must be appropriate, and explanations cannot be wordy or confusing. Less is always more. For these learners, less is always more. For these learners, it provides helpful. Uh, Kinesthetic. These learners must physically do the skill to be successful, to really learn it, to learn the body mechanics of it. They learn by doing. They will dive into it without instruction or explanation and will need time to work on the skill. Often they're the ones that were saying, okay, just hold on a second. I'm just going to show you one more time and then we'll dive into it. The reality is that everyone learns in a combination of these, but generally there is certain areas that people respond to more. So it's a matter of when we're working with students, we'll notice the ones that maybe are lagging behind a little bit. And by experimenting a little bit with our technique and noticing, are they watching me to see what I'm doing? You know, do they just need to do it and I provide corrections to how to tweak it as they're going so that they can learn as they're going? Or do they need to see it one more time? Those ones are easy because they will say, can you show me again, please? Mind you, can you show me again, please, is sometimes a stall tactic for not wanting to stand. And sometimes it's, I just really need to see what each individual piece of your body is doing so that I can try and mimic it. So you'll learn over time the cues that tells us, you know, what type of learner an individual is. We're going to be talking about in the next video the ideas module or the ideas teaching methodology. And we use that because it tries to use all three of these in every skill that we teach so that for every individual, every student, we're hitting on something that is going to work for them um, as they are trying to learn the skill. The instructor, so you. And here, I like to change up the wording a little bit. The instructor, I'll often refer to us as the outdoor experience leader. Sometimes leader sounds like a big word to folks and they kind of shy away from it. But realistically, we are working in that capacity when we are standing in front of people and sharing our knowledge with them. We're providing guidance. They are looking to us to share what we have, to learn from. You know, we are working in a leadership capacity. That doesn't mean, again, that we should be on pedestals, but we should be accepting that responsibility and thinking of ourselves as leaders and behaving as leaders. Leaders, I often break down into leaders, role models, and mentors. You know, we are absolutely all three when we are out in public being instructors. We are instructors for the individuals we are teaching. We are instructors for people who are happening to walk by and listen to us to pick up little bits and pieces. You know, at that point, we're role modeling. They might not know who we are or what we're doing, but they're observing what we're doing. And mentoring might come into the play into effect, you know, for lessons afterwards or coaching where you are working one-on-one with individuals to be able to pass on more knowledge and more skills that they are looking to gain. Instructor is a person who enables others to acquire new skills, attitudes, values, knowledge, and behaviors. Attitudes, values, knowledge, and behaviors. That is entirely leadership. Becoming a great teacher is a lifelong process that requires dedication, reflection, and patience. I would say reflection is the biggest of those three. Constantly reevaluating ourselves. How could I have done that different? How might I tweak that for next time? What did I do well this time that I'm going to duplicate? All of those things um, make us continue to grow and learn. Characteristics of a good teacher: professional, prepared, organized, punctual. Buddy's barking at something as usual. Responsible, ambassador for the sport. Ambassador is a Palo Canada word. We are ambassadors for the sport. But again, I'm going to throw in leader, role model, and mentor, because to me, they are bigger words that hold a little more responsibility, which helps us step into, I think, the shoes we need to be filling. Confident. Sometimes we don't always feel confident in what we're saying. But always remember that if someone's there taking a lesson, you know more than them. You know, you have information that they want to learn and that they are there to accept from you. So deliver it with confidence. Approachable is so important. Get off that pedestal again if that is a tendency. We are, another word for instructor that I use, I'm a yoga instructor. I don't call myself a yoga teacher instructor. I call myself a guide. I'm just there to guide you through the practice that I know how to lead. I'm not on that pedestal again. I'm not at the front of the room. I am trying to make myself level the playing field of, in this capacity, I'm guiding and I'm leading in this capacity, but I'm the same as you and I'm always learning something new. Understands and responds to the emotional state and needs of their students. When someone's cold, we have to address it. When someone is scared, we have to address it. When they are overexcited, we have to address it and help them manage it so that they end that lesson, on that high note of excitement and wanting to come back. So understanding and responding, in leadership, that's, emotional intelligence, emotional leadership. It's being tuned in to our students and what's going on with them so that we can adjust our interactions maybe on an individual level accordingly. Coming back to that idea of providing a safe, comfortable environment for them to learn in. Adjust teaching styles to suit student needs. If someone just isn't getting it, we need to change our style. It's not that they can't learn, it's that we haven't found a way to teach them. So we have to adjust our technique to make sure that they are achieving what they signed up to achieve. So the job's on us to help them instruct. If we show them how to paddle forward the exact same way 3 times, and all 3 times it hasn't worked, that's our bad. We need to adjust to find a way that is going to work for that student. Continually improving skills in the sport taught. So as an instructor, that's why the requirement for this course here, the Paddle Canada Basic SUP Instructor, is to have advanced level skills. You always want to have one level skills higher, at least one level skill higher. Once you're an instructor, to go to an advanced instructor, you need to have another discipline as well. So to keep current is important. Paddle stroke techniques, especially for race, are changing all the time. Keeping current in what are the current methodologies, what are the current techniques, what is the current way of doing things. Expanding broadening our horizons as instructors. Maybe we start learning more about touring, surf, or rivers, because every time we learn at a new level in a new area of the sport, I guarantee you will learn things that you can take back to this class and interweave it into your general teaching that the students will appreciate. So keeping current, keeping curious is hugely important. Required instructor gear. You need a paddleboard suitable for teaching on. Talk more about that later. You need a leash, you need a PDF or PFD with a whistle, and you need a paddle. So we need to have that basic level of equipment. We are role models, so we should always be wearing and using appropriate equipment. Safety gear. We need to have a whistle on our PFD. You know, throw bag as guides. Transport Canada. This is in the reference guide, the reference PFD that I put together for you. Transport Canada requirements of guides. And as instructors leading students, we are technically guides based on Transport Canada. We need to have a throw bag on our boards. If we're going on longer excursions, you know, it's also going to say first aid kit, cell phone, clothing. These will be kind of dependent on the length of the trip, but 100% that Transport Canada guide requirement is going to say throw bag and first aid kit. Water bottle, snacks. If we're going to be out for a long time, we just need to be prepared. Snacks. If we get hungry, somebody's sugar drops and we need to raise it up quickly. Water. When we're on the water and it's 30 degrees, you will get dehydrated. You can overheat if you're in a wetsuit. We need to be able to manage that. So we need to be prepared. This list varies depending on the length of and location of the experiences. If it's an hour-and-a-half lesson and you're right by the beach, right by the bathroom, right by the concession stand, I don't carry water or snacks. We come back in. But I definitely carry a throw bag, and I always have a first aid kit in my dry bag just because it's good to have. Considerations in delivery during our instruction. Language, KISS, KISS. Keep it short and sweet and use appropriate terminology. Appropriate terminology is underlined because that is easy to slide, especially for new instructors who are new to the equipment. Short and sweet, absolutely. Attention spans will vary, but they're always going to be short-ish. The longer we talk, you're going to lose your students and they're not going to hear you. Appropriate terminology, if you point to the nose of the board and keep saying the front of the board, the back of the board, the front of the board, that's inappropriate terminology. We need to say towards the nose, towards the tail, the handle of the board. This is the fin, this is the deck pad. We need to use that appropriate terminology so our students use it so that they can in turn start using it when they interact with other individuals. Volume, outdoor voice, good projection. The wind will carry your voice. You have to talk from down in your abdomen. Talking up high here, it just won't carry. Our outdoor classrooms are on the water. There is always going to be a breeze. If I am standing here and my students are over here to the right, this is my right hand, this is my left. If the breeze is blowing this way, my voice is blowing away from the students. Even a light breeze, they will not hear what I'm saying. I have to continually reposition myself, especially in a strong wind, to make sure they can hear me. And when I'm talking, I'm looking for eyes. Are they looking at me? If I'm demonstrating something and I can't see somebody's eyes, they can't see me. And asking, did you hear that? A lot of folks aren't going to say if they can't hear you. They don't want to be center of attention. Ask them, did you hear that? If you get a no, do it again. Change your position. Do it again. Often if I'm in the middle of the group, I'm looking to one side and saying my lesson, so giving the skill, and then I look and do it all over again for this side, knowing that as soon as I face away from this side, they can't hear a word I'm saying, and they're missing out. Inclusive language. Avoid general sayings that imply gender. This is so important, especially in today's world. Hey guys is no longer appropriate. Hey folks, removing gender from the general conversation. This is especially important in schools where youth are starting to be comfortable, announcing that they maybe don't identify in the way that they present. So being respectful of that. We don't need to ask pronouns. If the group is comfortable, we can ask pronouns so that we know. But just teaching from the assumption that using general terms is always going to be safest. And it's going to be hard. If you don't do it now, it takes practice, and it takes a lot of practice. And sometimes it's going to slip out. Do your best. Teaching styles, meet learner needs. We address that with the ideas model, visual, kinesthetic, audio learners. We're going to make sure that we teach in a way that addresses all of them. Do what you teach. This is huge. If you say stay on your knees to the group as we're paddling out, you also need to stay on your knees. Students will follow your lead, not necessarily what you say. Visual learners, you can say stay on your knees, and as soon as you stand, they will try standing. So when you say walk out to your knees with the board, mount the board by bringing your knees around the handle and then paddling to a set destination and meeting there, staying on your knees, do the same. If you don't, your students will get confused because some of them won't have heard you. A lot of them are going to be doing what you're doing. So do what you teach. Board choice. This was back on the other page where I said we're going to talk about this soon. Your paddle board, so under the equipment section. Board choice, choose equipment that provides stability for you and can be ridden by a student if needed. This is not your opportunity to show off how well you do on a sporty race board or how cool your river board is. You have to be stable. Your focus has to be on your students, not on your stability. And in the event that a student ends up on the wrong board, they were sized inappropriately, something goes wrong with that equipment, they're going to end up on your board. So what you're riding really should be something that any of your students would be comfortable riding as well. So not an opportunity to show off. It's building redundancy into the boards while you're out there so that your board can also be shared if need be. Use people's names, show enthusiasm, have fun. I know it's obvious. Names are tricky. A lot of us have trouble with names, including myself, and it takes me a while to learn them. So the better you can do it, whatever practice it takes, whatever skills it takes to do that, to learn them, practice it. Often it's, someone gives their name, hello. So if I was introducing myself, hi, my name's Drew, I'm a brand new paddler and I'm hoping to be able to stand today. Appropriate response is, great, hi Drew, nice to meet you. You've used it once. Use it a couple more times as soon as you can. Help set it in. All right, group management, things you should think about. Group positioning, sun, distractions, hazards. This is going to be in the theory portion of the lesson. Where are people looking when you're talking to them so they don't get distracted? Are they staring into the sun, but you aren't? You need to change that group around. You need to be staring into the sun and they are looking at you. You can put your sunglasses on if you're far away, if you need them. There's also a lot to be said for being able to make direct eye contact. But obviously on the water with glare and reflection, sunglasses are going to be ideal. Safety of the group, physical and emotional. We got to be on the lookout and we got to be watching. If we said stay away from those rocks, brand new paddler, chances are before they, especially within the first half hour on the water, they may be intending to stay away from those rocks, but chances are they're not going to be able to. So we have to be able to coach them along the way to help them avoid it. And that could be avoid this distraction. Managing students who are progressing at different rates, avoiding students getting separated. Students are going to progress at different rates in the class. Some are going to be fast paddlers and moving away. Some are going to be moving at a slower rate. To keep the group from moving apart, we need to have tools and techniques to be able to hold them together. Additional considerations that you need to think about are parents, school teachers, or groups coming along in a group. They're part of your ratios. Count them that way. So if you said 6 students, but there's 2 teachers, you got 4 students and 2 teachers in your 1-to-6 ratio. If there's multiple instructors, defining roles, responsibilities, and level of involvement, make sure you do that on the water and ideally before the class shows up. Deciding what you're going to do in front of the class does not instill confidence. You need to have that identified ahead of time. Who's going to be in the lead? Who's going to be the sweep? Who's going to be in the middle of a big group? So just have all that sorted out when you have that luxury of having multiple students or multiple instructors. All right, so that wraps up this session. And yeah, go back and review it a couple of times. There's a lot of information in here, and we're going to be using all of this in our water portions of our teaching. All right, I'll see you in the next video.